Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and this is how to create a Wolfenstein 3D FPS clone in Unity, and welcome to episode 19. In this tutorial we are going to focus on dealing damage to our enemy. Don't forget, click on the subscribe button and click that bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial still to come in this series and everything else on my channel about video game development. And if you've enjoyed this series so far, please feel free to check out my Patreon page or YouTube memberships where you learn things like early access, exclusive content, project files, and so much more. With that in mind, let's get to work. So, up until now, our soldier, our enemy right here, has the ability to hurt us and kill us. We can't hurt him right now, so we're going to make a couple of changes to a script, which is going to be the handgun fire script, and we're also going to create a new script which will allow us to control the enemy's health and basically make the enemy die when he runs out of health. So in order to do this, what we're going to need to do is basically set another animation on this character right here, the enemy. So let's go to the folder where we have him stored down here, and we have animations, we have fire pistol and idle. They're the two animations that we currently have attached to the soldier. If we go to the animator, we can see that right there. We need to take, if I can find it, death right there. So this one, hold control, press D, bring it out. And we don't want to loop it, we only want it to play once. So just like idle, we have loop time ticked and loop pose ticked. We have to make sure that death does not. We only want death to occur once. This isn't some kind of magical world, is it, where we can resurrect the dead? So we only want it to play once. So let's attach that death to the animator. Just place it there in a nice, neat little row. So this animation now will allow our soldier to basically just die when he runs out of health. So in order to make that work, we need to first go to our handgun fire script. So let's go to our handgun. Double click on handgun fire. Let's open it up in Visual Studio. So we're going to add a couple of things here. We need to add two variables, or rather two variables initially, and then a third one as we write the code. The first two is going to be a distance and a damage amount. Excuse me. So the distance is going to be, for example, how far we can be, and the damage amount is how much health we're going to take off. So although theoretically you think about how the old Wolfenstein games were, health wasn't really a thing for the enemies. You just shoot them a couple of times and they're dead, but you still have to assign a physical number for health. So let's add those two variables at the top. So public, and it's going to be a float and target distance without the 6, obviously. And the next one, we'll call this damage amount. So public, I'm going to have this as an int, but you can have it as a float if you want to work with decimals. I'm going to work with whole numbers here, and let's call this damage amount. So damage amount semicolon. So we're going to use a raycast here, simply because we need to detect, for example, how far the enemy is away, although it doesn't really matter too much at this point, but we're still going to set everything in motion should we need to further refine every bit of this. So we are going to say, when we fire the handgun, yes, we're going to fire it, we're going to play the handgun animation, we're going to set the muzzle flash on, and we're going to play the sound. So before we even get to this, what we need to do is send out a raycast to basically make sure we are hitting the right thing. So what we'll need to do is, in this coroutine, first things first, raycast hit, and you can call this anything you want, literally anything. I'm going to call it the shot. Okay, so I guess it really doesn't matter. That's fine. It's moaning, but we don't need to worry about it too much for now. So we have that in there. So that now means that we can basically do our raycast. So if, and in brackets, physics.raycast .raycast, and we need to basically make sure it goes forward. We've been through raycast before, so we know what we're doing here. We don't need to worry about it too much. And it's transform direction, and we need to make sure it does go forward indeed. So actually we need to have the position first, don't we? So transform dot position, not semicolon, no, comma. And like I said, we need to transform the direction to make sure it goes forward. So we need in brackets vector 3 dot forward, close bracket, and then comma, and the output is going to be to the shot. Close bracket, and open curly bracket. And you'll see, because we put that output there now, this is no longer moaning at us. That's the technical term, moaning. So that raycast is now going to be sent out. And for reference sake, what we're going to do is have target distance equal to the shot dot distance. And the reason I'm doing this for now is to kind of prepare for when we want to go a little bit more advanced with this. So we don't need to kind of recap over and over and over. So it's in place ready for when we do some more of this further down the line. So the next thing to do is we need to find a way of allowing this raycast to communicate with basically the enemy. Now, the way it's going to work is if I go back into Unity, and let me find our enemy AI. So if I open up the enemy AI, or the soldier AI, so what this has done here is we've pretty much copied this line of code and placed it in our new one. But the way this is actually going to work is going to be just a little bit different, because we're actually going to have a special script which allows the raycast to communicate with the soldier rather than just, well, take health off him. So in order to do that, we need to I'm going to close the soldier AI script, by the way. We need to head back to the handgun fire, and after we've set the shot dot distance, we are going to say the shot dot transform dot send message, and in brackets we now need to quote a couple of things. So the first thing we're going to put in quotes is a name of a method that we are going to use. So we need to remember whatever we put in these quotes, because that is the name of the method that we are going to create in the next script. So for this, I'm just going to put damage enemy, comma, and then what value do we want to send? Well, we want to send whatever we have as our damage amount. So here we're going to put damage amount. So this is now, think of it as a way of sending a variable over to this method. So we're basically controlling a completely different method, completely different script via this raycast. And we don't need it to return anything to us, so we can just put send message options dot don't require receiver, because like I say, we don't need anything to return to this script. So the last thing we're going to want to do is make a value for this damage amount. Now you could actually put an integer here, but I want to work with difficulty at some point. And obviously working with difficulty means that we're going to have to deal with variable numbers. So obviously we keep this as a variable. However, for now, we're just going to set this as 5. So what we're saying is that damage amount is equal to 5. And if this connects with the enemy, then what we do is we trigger this particular method and we send this particular value. In this case, it's going to be 5. So let's save that script now and let's head back into Unity. Now, before we write that script that needs to be on our soldier, let's quickly check that everything is going to be as intended here. So once Unity has finished compiling, it's taking a moment here. Come on, Unity. You don't need to take quite so long. So we can see down here we have those two variables in place, the target distance and the damage amount. So next thing, let's create the enemy death script. So what we do is let's go to our scripts folder and enemies. We're already in there, luckily. Let's right click, create C# script. And this one, I'm just going to simply call enemy death. And let's open that up in Visual Studio. And this one is actually going to be a lot smaller than the handgun fire. It's probably also worth pointing out that what we have set up for the handgun can be used for any gun, really. I mean, if you've got a shotgun or a rifle or something, you can just use this script and modify it to fit whatever weapon you have. So this script, let's get rid of the annotations and void start because we don't need them. We do, however, need a couple of variables. The first one is going to be the health of whatever enemy this is attached to. So public int and enemy health. And I'm going to make it by default equal to 20. So 4 shots and he's a goner. Next one is going to be, in fact, we probably need 2 variables. I think we can get away with just 2. Because we can use a bool here to detect whether the enemy is dead or not. Because we basically need to check if the enemy has 0 or less than 0 health. But then that could repeat infinitely. So we do need a bool to check if we have killed the enemy or not. So we might be able to get away with just 2 here. So public bool and enemy dead, obviously by default that is false. So do you remember earlier when I said remember the name of the method, this damage enemy? I'm going to copy that now because we're going to write that method. So let's go here and let's go void and damage enemy, and in the parentheses we need to put int damage amount, close bracket and open curly brackets. So what we're saying here is this is ready to receive whatever we're sending. So in this case, damage amount. So because we've sent that variable, that variable over to this method, we can then say enemy health minus equals damage amount, semicolon. So what's going to happen here is when that raycast connects with this script and sends that integer to this method, it means that this variable, enemy health, is going to be taken down by 5 points because that's what we've told it to do. So by that same standard, we now need to monitor our enemy health. So in this case, we need to say if, and this is in the update method, remember, enemy health is equal, should be less than or equal to 0, and then a double ampersand because we need to make another statement in here to say is the enemy actually alive. So if enemy dead equals false, then do the following. And obviously the first thing we're going to have to do is say enemy dead equals true. This will prevent the if statement repeating itself over and over and over, but because we're already inside that if statement, it means that whatever we put next, the code will still execute. So firstly, let's start by saying this dot get component, and in spiky brackets, animator. If I can type properly. And we need to say dot, play, isn't it? So dot play, and in brackets and quotes, death. So death. Now that animation will play. Now at the same time, we have to make sure that we actually disable a lot of the AI. And because we've actually attached it to a separate game object, that is where the third actual variable comes in. So yeah, we did need 3 in the end. So let's have public game object and then enemy AI semicolon, and then we'll say enemy AI dot set, not send message, set active false. So we turn off the AI for the enemy. So save that script and head back into Unity. So last thing to do would be to attach our enemy death script onto our soldier. And then we just need to drag the enemy AI, which is this game object right here, onto there. So what will happen now is that when our enemy finally loses all its health, it will stop any AI from occurring and the enemy will just die. So I'm going to save my project and I'm going to press play and let's check this out. So let's make sure that we do have our ammo and our gun. So now let's kill our enemy. Keep an eye over here. So we've got enemy health 20. Keep an eye on that. Hopefully this should work. Okay, so looks like we do need to change something here because our handgun is not actually connecting with anything. So if I go to the scene view, okay, so we do have a little bit of a bug here. So although it is indeed firing, so if I press play, pick up the handgun, and we should be able to see the down here, the target distance, we should be able to see that actually changing, which is fine. No problem. So what that now means is that we need to figure out why this is not connect. Oh, and we ran out of ammo. We need to figure out why it's not connecting with our player. Now, there could be a couple of different reasons. One of them is I probably coded something wrong somewhere. However, it does mean that something probably is not working as intended here. So we know that this section is working, but it seems like this section is not. So let's see if we can figure out why this section here is not fully connecting with what it should be doing. So the shot.transform.send message. Okay, I'll tell you what. I wonder if we can I wonder if we can actually split that script out now. The reason I say that is because I think that essentially this might not be working as intended. So let's quickly put our handgun on and see if... So the script is going this way, which is completely normal. So it turns out, actually, after a quick couple of minutes there investigating this, the actual script that we have, enemy death, needs to go on the soldier himself, as it is the soldier that actually has that collider. So that will ultimately be the reason why this decided not to work. It's a simple mistake because ultimately the soldier itself is kind of a container. These things, you know, happen. But that's the beauty of being able to just kind of work out why things don't work as intended. So that script that we have, enemy death, we need to put that onto soldier. So right there. And luckily everything is as normal because we've just basically dragged it from one object to another. However, it does also mean that we'll need to add the soldier as another variable. So let's head back to the script and add in public game object, and we will say the enemy semicolon. So rather than have this .get component, we'll say the enemy .get component animator play death. So save that script, head back into Unity, and we just need to drag the soldier into that section there. And now, because we've attached the script to the object that has the collider on it, we shouldn't have a problem. So let's pick up our gun, let's pick up some ammunition, let's get enough, and keep an eye on that 20. That should now decrease. One more. And he's a goner. Lovely. Now, that there, this, when I did the actual testing for this particular tutorial, I wanted to leave that in. Now, you don't have to if you don't want to. The reason I'm leaving that in is because that is a little bit of a reference to how the original Wolfenstein 3D behaves. And I kind of like that a lot. And I know it's silly, I know it's daft, but I do kind of like that. Obviously, if you don't want to have that in, you can just change whatever you need to. You can just turn this look player script off. All you would do for that is just go to this section here where you've got enemy AI set active false. All you need to do is have the enemy dot get component and look player close bracket dot enabled equals false semicolon save, and that will turn it off, that kind of rotating dead soldier. Like I say, I'd like to leave that in because it is one of the quirks of the game originally. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4. There we go. So now, as you'll see, he is just on the floor, like so. So that is how we can actually kill our enemies. And the great thing about that is that you can duplicate this enemy and it will work on all of them. So before we end this tutorial, let's take this soldier, hold Control, press D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring him round here, and let's try that out. So there's a duplicate of our enemy. Let's get plenty of ammo. And let's sort him out. There we go. He's gone. And this one. And there's that one gone as well. Perfect. So guys, next tutorial, we're going to build up this area once and for all. So I think we're going to bring in some new textures. And we're also going to start implementing collectibles, you know, things like gold that you can pick up or whatever else. So until that next tutorial, guys, thank you very much for watching.